Magic Treehouse, Book Number 35, Camp Time in California. Written by Mary Pope Osborne. Chapter 3, Grizzly. I can't believe it, Jack said with a laugh. This is so cool. I know. I want to draw everything, said Annie. I'll sketch that little bird. She pointed to a small red bird sitting on a low branch. Then she turned the page in her book and started sketching. What next? Jack eagerly looked around. A large mushroom caught his attention. He lightly held his magic pencil and began sketching. Jack outlined the graceful curves of the mushroom's cap and stem. Then his pencil moved up and down, drawing the hundreds of fan-like folds under the cap. Soon Jack held up his work. "Perfect mushroom!" he exclaimed. "Perfect bird," said Annie. "Oh, shh! There's a deer." Not far away, a deer with antlers was eating the leaves of a bush. "I'll draw him," Annie whispered, and tiptoed through the forest. Jack gazed around at the giant trees. He began outlining a huge chunk. He drew the deep grooves in the rusty red bark. He shaded the furrows. As Jack sketched the tree trunk, a gust of wind made the high branches sway. Jack looked up. Millions of leaves seemed to be waving at him. Jack stared in awe. "Hi there," he said to the tree. Then he grinned. Was he really talking to a tree now? He shook his head and looked around for Annie. Where was she? Annie and the deer were gone. Jack started through the forest. "Annie," he called. He walked around one giant chunk, then another, until he saw Annie. She was standing in a ray of misty light slanting between the trees. "Hey," said Jack. Annie turned and held her finger to her lips. Jack stepped softly toward her. Annie pointed to a hollow in one of the giant chunks. "Whoa," said Jack, stepping back. A huge bear was asleep inside. The bear had shaggy brown fur and long, sharp claws. "Sweet, huh?" Annie whispered. "Not sweet," Jack whispered back. "That's a grizzly bear." "Oh, okay, but it's fast asleep," whispered Annie. "I want to draw it." "Are you nuts?" said Jack. "Grizzly bears attack humans. Their jaws are so strong they can bite through a bowling ball." "No way," said Annie. "I read that," Jack exclaimed. The grizzly stirred and opened its eyes. It looked at Jack and Annie. "Yikes," said Annie. The grizzly bear huffed and hauled itself out of the hollow in the chunk. Standing on its hind legs, it looked like it was at least 8 feet tall. "And I read that if you run into a bear, you should stay calm," Jack whispered. "Act friendly. Wave your arms." Annie waved both her arms. "Howdy," she said. "Oh, brother," thought Jack. The bear stood still and stared at them. "How are you doing?" Annie asked brightly. The bear went back down on all fours. Its head was lowered, its ears back. Then it roared. "Bad sign," said Jack. He clutched Annie's arm. He pulled her farther away from the bear. "Should we run?" she asked. "No, bears run as fast as horses," said Jack. The bear growled, a deep, low growl. "Run," said Jack. He and Annie took off through the green and brown forest. They tore around the enormous tree trunks. They scrambled over chunks of bark, fallen leaves, tree cones, seedlings, plants, logs, and rocks. They ran until they came to a dirt trail. Wait," said Annie, huffing and puffing. She grabbed Jack and stopped him. Is it still coming? They both panted as they looked behind them. There was no sign of the grizzly. Where is it? Said Jack. Maybe it didn't chase us, said Annie. Or maybe it's hiding, said Jack. Listen, I hear something, said Annie. Jack heard heavy thumping against the ground. Come on, he said. No, wait, said Annie. That sounds like horses. A moment later, 4 men on horseback rounded a bend in the forest trail. The horsemen rode in a line toward Jack and Annie. The first rider was an odd-looking cowboy. He wore a cowboy hat and a bandana. His baggy pants were tucked into tall riding boots. He had a thick mustache and wore round glasses. The second rider was tall and thin. He had a scraggly white beard and wore a shabby overcoat and hat. The last 2 men wore blue overalls. Behind them were 2 pack mules without riders. As the group drew close to Jack and Annie, the cowboy held up his hand. The horsemen and mules behind him came to a noisy halt. Greetings, friends, the cowboy shouted. Chapter 4. Bully for you. Greetings, Annie said. Did a newspaper send you kids to spy on us? The cowboy asked with a grin. What's he talking about? Jack wondered. No, sir, said Annie. My brother and I were running from a bear. A grizzly bear, added Jack. Oh, I'm sorry, but you can't fool us, Sonny, the cowboy said. No grizzlies in Yosemite now. The last one was spotted 8 years ago. Right, John? He looked at the older, bearded man. That's right, sir, said John. His blue eyes twinkled as he smiled at Jack and Annie. You must have seen a black bear. They won't hurt you if you leave them alone. They mostly eat plants, roots, and berries. But it looked just like a grizzly, said Jack. It had shaggy brown fur and really long claws. Sorry, son, said the cowboy. You have to trust my friend. We all call him John of the Mountains. He knows this wild country better than anybody. For 30 years he's been studying the animals, trees, and rocks of Yosemite. Cool, said Annie. We're studying all that too and drawing pictures of it. Good for you, young lady, said the cowboy. Well, we must be on our way. If you're afraid of bears, take my advice. Walk softly and carry a big stick. The cowboy laughed heartily at his own joke. The other riders laughed too. Wait, would you like to see our drawings? Said Annie. No, Annie, said Jack. He could tell the riders wanted to get going. But Annie pulled out her sketchbook. She held it up to the cowboy. Check it out, she said. The cowboy took the book from Annie. He opened it and looked at her butterfly drawing. You drew this? He said. Yes, sir, said Annie. We're artists. Well, bully for you, said the cowboy. Wait till you see my brother's drawings, said Annie. Show him, Jack. Jack shyly handed his sketchbook to the cowboy. Excellent, the man said, staring at Jack's squirrel drawing. Here, John, take a look. The cowboy handed both books to John of the Mountains. The elderly man looked at the butterfly and squirrel sketches. His face broke into a wide grin. Goodness, you two are serious artists, he said. What are your names? Jack and Annie, said Annie. Well, Jack and Annie, you perfectly captured the rare alpine butterfly and the Douglas squirrel, John said. Did you know that the Douglas squirrel is the spirit of the sequoia trees? When he eats a cone from a big tree, he scatters its seeds. From those tiny seeds, a few trees might sprout. Over hundreds of years, they'll grow into the mighty giants of Yosemite. Wow, said Annie. That shows how everything is connected, doesn't it? John of the Mountains looked startled. Yes, it does, Annie, he said. One little thing in nature, like that squirrel, is hitched to the whole universe. Exactly, said Jack, trying to join the conversation. John shook his head in wonder. You two are remarkable, he said. How did you get here? Who brought you? Our art teacher delivered us, said Jack. Her name is Morgan, said Annie. She dropped us off near the big trees. Hold on, the cowboy growled. Are you saying your teacher just left you alone in the woods? Well, stammered Jack. He looked at Annie. It's okay. We asked her to leave us in the wilderness overnight, said Annie. We told her we wanted to spend time in Yosemite to make our nature books. She thought it would be a great opportunity for us. I don't agree, said the cowboy, scowling. It's quite risky to leave two children in the wild. Sometimes it might be, said Annie, but not for Jack and me. We're actually tougher than we look, and smarter, and braver. John of the Mountains laughed. I believe you, Annie, he said. He turned to the cowboy. Sir, did you not say you wished that nature artists could travel with us? I did, said the cowboy. Well, two excellent young artists have just crossed our path, said John of the Mountains, and they plan to spend a night in Yosemite. I call that a miracle. I still think they're too young, said the cowboy. Sir, I was out in the world working for my family when I was their age, said John. Won't they be safer with us on our journey than wandering the woods alone? Wait, journey? Where are they going? Jack wondered. The cowboy looked at Jack and Annie. Annie stood straighter and held her chin up. All right, you win, John, the cowboy said, chuckling. Would you two young artists like to join us? Yes, we would, said Annie. We would? Thought Jack. He wasn't sure. We will pay you for your work, the cowboy said. Annie whispered Morgan's words to Jack. Give help to others, give it for free. No thank you, sir. We only work for free, said Jack. But can you tell us where we're going? Of course, the cowboy said with a toothy grin. We're going nowhere, son. We're planning to get lost in the wild.